All right, everybody, good evening. We have made it. We have made it to the first 53-man roster of the 2024 season for the Seattle Seahawks. Obviously, I think we're all very aware of the fact that this is very fluid. This is something that is going to change maybe later tonight and almost certainly at some point tomorrow. And it's going to change a lot during the season, but we have our first 53-man roster comes from the official Seattle Seahawks X account right here. You can see the nice pictures they have set up for the offense and the defense. So we're going to be going over it. Suffice to say that there was a lot that I missed on, a lot of stuff that everybody pretty much missed on. And it's pretty interesting the way in which they decided to do this. I'm going to discuss it where I can, but in some cases, it's probably just something that we as the fans cannot possibly know about because we're not in the building every day. And there also are probably some considerations with these guys that happen behind closed doors that we just don't know about. I'll be trying to break it down the best that I can, but I'll go ahead and just say that some of this stuff does throw me for a little bit of a loop. Some of this stuff does surprise me. And some of this stuff I think is going to be a little bit difficult to make sense of right now. But I took this 53-man roster and put it over into my spreadsheet here. Forget about the practice squad. We're not going to talk about practice squad stuff right now. That'll be for a video probably tomorrow because practice squads can't be built until after the waiver deadline, which I think is tomorrow at 1 p.m. Pacific. So the focus will be the guys who are on the roster and the guys who are starting the season on the injured reserve PUP list, which in our case is going to be 3 players. But we'll get to that when we get to that. Let's go ahead and start just moving down the list here. Again, everything you see here was copied over into this list. So, active roster. Quarterback, we go Geno Smith and Sam Howell, which shouldn't surprise anybody. PJ Walker did not make it. I do think there's a chance he comes back on the practice squad, but if not him, it'll be a different quarterback. So we'll talk about that more in the future. Running back, Ken Walker, Zach Charbonnet, Kenny McIntosh, and that's it. I mean, I got the top 3 right, I guess, but no George Holani. And there was a big part of me that wants to say that, of course, we're going to bring in a 4th running back. It's going to be somebody who gets waived today, somebody who shakes free over the next couple of hours or days. But I don't see how the guy that you would have picked up would be better than George Holani, who looked really good in the preseason and is super cheap. So maybe not. Some people have theorized that the presence of Laviska Shenault on the team is liberating the team to only carry 3 running backs because he can be like your 4th running back, which I like the idea. I like it a lot. But Shenault already kind of pushed back on the idea of playing running back a few days ago when he talked about his adventures with the Commanders in the offseason. So it sounds like something he doesn't really want to do. So I don't know if I would bet on that. But at this point, I can only conclude that the Seahawks intend to carry 3 running backs and then just have Shenault fill in the gaps. And I mean, I'm not against it. Don't get me wrong. I like the concept, but will it work in practice? I think Holani will be on the practice squad, and if we can't get him on the practice squad, you're probably going to see like Kobe Lewis or somebody that we don't even know about link up with the team. And that gets us to wide receiver, where we've got DK Metcalf as expected, JSN, Tyler Lockett as expected, Shenault and Bobo as expected, and then the wild card ended up being Derek Young, who is the guy that I thought would do it, but he had been so quiet the last couple weeks, I wasn't sure anymore. And there were a lot of people who thought it could be Winston, thought it could be Cody White, thought it could be Eskridge. All those guys are gone. I think 2 of them will end up on the practice squad personally. So I think we're not done with that crew. And we might see them playing some games this year. But for the moment, they are out. And we're just hoping to bring them back tomorrow. Okay, so tight end, very surprising to me here. We carried 4. And on the one hand, this could be a response to the injuries because Fant is still out, Pharaoh Brown is still out, and that leaves you very, very thin. But I'm pretty sure Noah Fant's going to be ready for the opener, and Pharaoh Brown might miss 1 game. So if you wanted another tight end, you could have put that tight end, like say Russell, on the practice squad, and then you could have just promoted him for week 1. And then you could have used a couple promotions on him until Pharaoh Brown got back. So I don't think you needed to use a 53-man roster spot to get Brady Russell ready to go for week 1. You can do that via using the practice squad rules. So I'm not a huge fan of this personally. Maybe they have some plan to utilize a lot of 2 tight end sets. Maybe they're going to be going heavy tight end this year, and it's just going to take the whole world by storm, because that's not the Ryan Grubb that I know. But yeah, I'm kind of, I don't know. If you ask me who I'd rather keep on the 53-man between George Holani and Brady Russell, I know who I'd pick, and it's not Brady Russell. But that is what they have at tight end right now. Offensive line, we went with Cross and Forsyth at left tackle. Predictable. Right tackle, Abe Lucas starts the season on injured reserve. Gonna hopefully come back after 4 games. It's 4 games per Brady Henderson. So George Fant is the starter, and Mike Jarrell makes the initial team. So good for him. This is exciting. This is a big deal, actually, because this is a guy, Division III football, not really expected to make the NFL by anybody who thought about things like that. And here he is making his 53-man roster as a rookie. So very exciting. I don't know how long that is going to last, but for the moment he is here, and we should be excited about that because he's very talented. It's possible he will not survive an activation of Abe Lucas, but we'll determine that in the coming weeks because Abe Lucas can't be back for at least a month. Left guard, we got Laken Tomlinson and Christian Haynes backing him up. So Tomlinson did survive cutdown day. Some people theorized that he wouldn't. Right guard goes Anthony Bradford and then Sata Oalomia. By the way, when projecting who's going to start and who's going to be the backup, I am still guessing because we haven't announced stuff yet. Like, we haven't officially announced that Bradford's going to start, but I'd be very surprised if he didn't. I don't think Tomlinson would still be here if we were going to bench him. He's been in the league for so long that I don't know why he'd be here just to sit on the bench when he can probably go sit on his couch just as effectively. Like, that's how these older veterans tend to think. So I do think he's going to start. Center is very interesting. We've got Connor Williams, we've got Oluwatimi, and then we've got Jalen Sundle as a third-string center making the active roster. So instead of carrying an extra running back or carrying an extra cornerback or carrying an extra edge rusher, we decided to carry an extra center. Very interesting. My initial thought was maybe they're not 100% sure that Connor Williams will be ready for week 1. So if he isn't, they want to be able to go with Oluwatimi starting and Sundle backing him up. But that being the case, there's a 95% chance you're going to be able to get Sundle on the practice squad, and then you could just promote him for week 1, and you wouldn't need to have used the extra roster spot. And I know that 5% might be scary, but is Jalen Sundle really going to be that much better than just bringing back somebody like, you could almost bring back Joey Hunt at that point? Is it really that big of a difference? I know Jalen Sundle is interesting maybe long term because he's so young, but in the short term, I don't think he's going to be radically better. Like, if he gets forced out into action in week 1, it's probably going to be a disaster regardless. So I don't know about this one. Maybe we just really like him. I didn't think he stood out that much in the preseason to make the active roster. But my gut tells me this is some kind of concern about Connor Williams being ready right off the bat. But most of the stuff we've heard indicates that he will be. So I guess it's possible we see something with him in camp that we just really like. Okay, so that's the offensive line. That's everything up top. Let's get down to the defense here. Defensive line, we've got 6 guys, and then we've got the one guy starting on IR, which is Cam Young. So Cameron Young going to IR does make it possible that we carry an extra guy up front, and we have. So you've got Leonard Williams, Jaron Reed, Byron Murphy II, Miles Adams, who was the guy that I didn't think was going to make it because of Cam Young, but with Cam Young out of the picture for now, Miles Adams gets the bump, Mike Morris, and Jonathan Hankins. So pretty good group. pretty predictable. I wasn't sure if Adams was going to make it, but as you can see, the Seahawks have listed Dre'Mont Jones as a linebacker, not a down lineman. Now, I think he'll play both, but for the moment, they seem to be favoring him as like a big edge player rather than a down lineman. So maybe he'll do more of that, but we'll see when the season actually starts here. So those are your 6 defensive linemen, not much to say there. I think we're going to have a defensive lineman or two make the practice squad, but I don't know exactly who. It's not a great group to pick from. Most of the guys that impressed us were like the linebackers, but we're obviously going to have at least one defensive lineman on the practice squad just because you need one, I think. Linebacker, outside linebacker, we got 5, and one of them is Dre'Mont Jones, who is going to be kind of a utility man this year probably. Nwosu, who did not start the season on IR, so he is expected to be back in the first couple games. Oye Mafe, Derek Hall, like I said, Dre'Mont Jones, and then Gibson. So Gibson did make the team after we traded for him, which it'd be kind of weird if he didn't. Does he survive the roster after Nwosu gets back? That's the question. That's going to be the tricky part for him, because remember, we have other players on this team that can play a few snaps a game at edge. Leonard Williams, Mike Morris, even Byron Murphy. So when you add those 3 guys in with Nwosu, Mafe, Hall, and Dre'Mont, there's really not going to be much left for Gibson. So he might be a guy we try to get onto the practice squad after like a month. So we'll see what the team ends up doing, but I am definitely going to be monitoring that. Inside linebacker, mostly predictable with Baker, Dodson, and Knight, but then the 4th spot gets filled by Drake Thomas, not John Radigan and not Michael Barrett, but Drake Thomas gets that last spot. So this means that John Radigan, now look, the concerns with John Radigan were mostly monetary, I get that, and I completely support letting him go to try to save that $3 million and maybe turn it into like 1.1 million. And I do think we're going to try to bring Radigan back to the active roster. And maybe this all ends up being for nothing because tomorrow we bring back Radigan, release Drake Thomas, and then we just have the top 4 linebackers that I thought we would with Baker, Dodson, Knight, and Radigan. But then you also have the Michael Barrett part where I guess we just don't have room for him, and we didn't realize that until we traded for him. I don't know. And maybe we bring him back on the practice squad and everything is cool, but I mean, Michael Barrett was probably going to get cut anyway, right? If you think so little of him that you're going to cut him like less than a week after trading for him, or right about a week after trading for him, then you probably don't think he's going to be worthy of any team's 53-man rosters. So, I don't know. It feels like we just kind of messed up. Now, it's a tiny mess up, if anything. Not a bad thing to admit that you messed up, but I don't know. That seems to be an oversight to me. Hopefully, Barrett makes it back to the practice squad. Maybe Drake Thomas goes to the practice squad after we bring back Radigan. But don't forget about Pat O'Connell. He could get in the mix as well. But kind of confused there. Cornerback, Witherspoon, Woolen, Trey Brown is the top 3. Those are the main guys. And then you have Nehemiah Pritchett as the young developmental guy. And then you have D. Williams, who's really only here to return kicks and punts, probably. Mostly punts, which I kind of came around on happening a couple days ago. And, I mean, you need somebody to do that, and he's good at it. He was really good at it in college, and he's been good at it so far in the preseason. So that's probably the breakdown here, which means really we only have 4 cornerbacks. So look for DJ James to come back to the practice squad and maybe get some elevations throughout the year. Safety, Julian Love, Rayshon Jenkins, Kevon Wallace, Kobe Bryant, as expected. And Jarek Reed II starts the season on IR, which I think was pretty easy to predict when you look at the date of the injury he suffered. And then kicker, Myers, punter, Dixon, long snapper, Stoll, get you to exactly 53 players. So checked and double checked, that's the full roster. But definitely some surprises here, so let me know what you think, keeping in mind that things can still change. Maybe the Seahawks bring in another guard, and then they let Sundle go tomorrow, and then it's just like, oh, I guess it was just a holdover. Maybe Russell goes tomorrow, maybe Gibson goes tomorrow, but for now, this is what we have. I'll see you guys later. Go Hawks. That is your initial 53-man roster for 2024.